In supervision the other day, I found myself admitting something I don't often say out loud, that sometimes I scroll through social media because I feel a bit lonely. And I thought, if I'm doing that, probably lots of other people are doing it too. It really reminded me of the power that social media has to make people feel connected. And as therapists, that means we have an opportunity not just to promote our work, but to create a sense of community that someone might really need today. Welcome to Good Enough Counsellors, the podcast for growing a private practice without the pressure to be perfect. I'm Josephine Hughes, counsellor and creator of Therapy Growth Group, helping you get the clients you want and create the practice of your dreams. In today's episode, we're looking at part 3 of how you can get more clients using social media. And this month, it's all about community. The previous episodes on content and consistency are available as numbers 69 and 73. Now, let's just have a think about the power of community and why have I chosen this as one of my 3 C's for helping you to get more clients. Well, it's like any relationship. It's all about giving and receiving. And making connections with people is a really powerful way to show what you do and to help people choose you. And also, it's a great way of getting more eyes on your social media account. Let's start with the first. So how are we actually giving when we're thinking about community? Often I'll find when I'm looking at a social media post that if someone says and somehow summarises something that I'm feeling, it really does help me to feel, yes, there's someone here who understands me. And I think in a funny sort of way, when you read something like that, it actually helps you to regulate your emotions. When you share a grounding or a compassionate post, it helps others feel seen. And that feeling can stick. It certainly sticks with me. I remember the people who really do speak what I need to hear. For example, I follow a couple of influencers, and the reason that I follow them is because they've been so positive about transgender rights, and they're women who speak out on behalf of transgender people. And for me, that gives me a huge reason as to why I like them and why I decide to follow them. One of the other ways that social media posts can really help is when you're showing up as a real person. So showing up as someone who's imperfect, but that as people can see, you're actually growing and you're sharing the ways in which you're growing. And that gives other people the permission to know that they can change too, that healing is possible. And because you're being authentic, that might help them to reach out because they can see you're a real person. They can see that perhaps you too have your struggles, but that you carry on, and that gives them hope and confidence, and it can help them to trust you more. By doing those things, what you're actually doing is you're creating a safe space. Now, often you'll read in people's profiles that they like to provide a safe and compassionate space, and that's when you're telling people what you do. But if you're actually using your social media to create that space, by sharing posts that are going to speak to people and help them to know that they're understood and that where they feel held, what you're actually doing is you're not only telling them, you're showing them as well. You're showing them that it's not just about what you say in your profile, but you actually do it as part of your social media work. And that can speak very powerfully to people because often, let's face it, it's the way that people feel. It's the way you help people to feel that they're going to remember. That's what's going to make you stand out to them as somebody for them to follow and perhaps ultimately someone to contact if they want therapy. And I'd like to say at this point that you don't have to have a big community. You can have a small community. A community can be two people talking to each other. So if you get a DM from someone, that's a community. If you've got 2 or 3 people who are chatting on your posts, that is a community. We often think that unless we have a big community, we're not really being very successful. But the fact is that if you're helping people to engage and to find a space where they feel safe, you are actually creating a community, and that can be really valuable to people. So please don't underestimate the power of what you're doing. And finally, I think another part of this aspect of sharing authentic, honest posts on social media, what you're actually doing is you're showing you're part of the community. You're not above people. You're not just broadcasting. You're actually engaging with people. You're showing them that you're not somebody who's an expert who might be difficult to approach, but that you're somebody who's real. You're somebody who's human, and in your imperfection, you give them permission to be imperfect too. And that means you're not above them, you're part of them, you're connected to them. And it helps to build a sense of support, and it makes others more likely to share, to refer to you, and perhaps to engage with your content. So I think those are ways in which you can use your social media to connect and create community. That's maybe the part of the giving process. But I think there's an aspect of receiving as well. And this is why I wanted to talk about community, because community can be a really powerful tool to help you build your social media following. And by building a following, obviously, that means you are reaching more people and your posts will have more impact. So let's have a think about how you can use community to help you grow your social media and hopefully attract more clients. So the first thing I want to talk about is using your family and friends. You are already part of a community, and especially when you're getting started, family and friends can be really helpful to help boost your social media presence. Now, the first thing I want to address is what I've written down as the cringe factor. I've seen posts recently in the Good Enough Counsellors Facebook group where people are actually setting up entirely separate accounts. They don't want to involve anybody in their new social media accounts. And I think this is often because people want to keep their personal lives private, and they don't want that spillover between their professional lives and their personal lives. And I can understand that, because we hugely worry about self-disclosure, especially if we're not terribly experienced with social media. We can worry that something might accidentally leak out. But I actually think that by keeping them completely siloed, completely apart from each other, what you're doing is you're actually missing out what could be a really big boost to your business at the start. So I'd recommend, rather than setting up completely separate accounts, that actually what you do is you use something like, if you're using Facebook, use a Facebook business page, or you could use the creator aspect of your personal profile, because it is perfectly possible to keep your private stuff completely separate from that. You just need to take a little bit of care if you're using a creator account, which is on your personal profile, to just make sure your creator stuff is public and everything else is friends only. And it's very simple just to make sure that you do that each time, and you can keep your private life separate from any clients who might be looking at your public posts. Of course, if you're doing something like Instagram, you probably will have a separate account, similar to, say, TikTok. But certainly if you're using Facebook, I think there's a lot to be said for employing either a creator account or a Facebook business page that you run from your personal account. And just to say, if you're running a Facebook business account, you have a completely separate persona from your personal profile. People who follow your business page can't see your personal profile unless you appear as your personal profile, perhaps when you're answering something that someone's written. So you just need to make sure that you always engage with people as your business page persona. Hope that makes sense. I just wanted to say that because I know that people really worry about accidental self-disclosure and the muddying of the water between your personal and your professional life. But as I say, I think friends and family can be really useful. However, the cringe factor can be that you feel really embarrassed about your friends and family seeing what you're doing professionally. And I think this can often stem perhaps from what we might think of as imposter syndrome, that actually it's harder to let your friends and family see you as a counsellor than it is to think about completely random strangers seeing you as a counsellor. We can often worry about what our friends and family might think, and you worry perhaps about getting snarky comments back from them, and also the whole thing about, oh, are you trying to counsel me, when actually all we're doing is just listening because we're good listeners. So I think we can really worry and have this cringe factor about using our friends and families to help us when we're first launching our business. But I'd like to give you a couple of maybe little shifts for your mindset here. First off, I'd think about the wider purpose of what you're doing. And especially if you've got people around you who are supportive, they'll be really happy to support you in the fact that you are making a real difference to people's lives. And that's the whole reason why you want to run your social media page. Whether or not you want to get clients from it, you may well just be doing it because it feels important to share sort of positive, uplifting, encouraging posts that might make a difference to people's lives. You might be doing it for that reason, or you might be doing it to try and get clients. Either of those things are really positive things to be putting out into the world, especially on social media, which can be so difficult and can be so hard, and you get so many horrible things being said on social media. To have someone who is bringing some real lovely light and beauty to social media is an act of giving, of contribution within itself. Why shouldn't you do that? Why should you be stopped from doing that because someone doesn't approve? And I'd really like to remind you that you could be proud of yourself. And, not everybody has the gumption to actually set up in private practice and to actually start a small business, because that's what you're doing. We don't tend to think of ourselves as business people, but you are. You're setting up a small business, and therefore you're a business person, and you could be really proud of that. And if anybody criticises you, well, have they set up in a small business? Are they doing what you're doing? Have they had the courage to get out there and be brave and do something like start something up like a social media page? I think you should be really proud of yourself. So remember all your training. You deserve to do this. You've got the experience. You've worked with the clients. You know what troubles people. And that's quite often more than anyone else amongst your family and friendship group. So you deserve to do this. The cringe factor might be there, but actually, be grounded in who you really are. And let's remember that no one can argue with your feelings. No one can argue with your experience. This is what you feel. This is what you've experienced, and this is what you can say and you can do because this is you. People can try and argue with you, but they're not you. They don't know. So hold on to that. No one can argue with your feelings and your experience of yourself. Now, why are friends and family important and helpful? Well, you can ask them to share your posts. For example, if you have a Facebook business page, you could ask them to like and follow and share some of your posts. You might only get 2 or 3 people who do it, but that's 2 or 3 people who you wouldn't have had doing it before you asked. And there's going to be people in their network who don't actually know you, and they may have people in their network who are actually quite interested in what you've got to say. And by sharing your stuff, what they're doing is they are expanding your network. They're expanding the number of people who you're reaching. And you never know, they might share something and someone might pick it up, share it, and then it might get picked up by someone else. And so it goes on expanding and expanding and expanding. So often at the start, it is really, really helpful if you let your friends and family know that you've started this new page up. You'd be really grateful if they could share anything that speaks to them or feels relevant, or even if you do like an introduction post where you're talking about yourself and who you are as a therapist and a few key facts about yourself. I'm seeing a lot of these around at the moment. There's a bit of a trend for them. You could ask them to share something like that. And people actually, you know what? Most people really like to help. They like to feel that they're giving somebody a bit of a boost. So often people are much more prepared to help than you would imagine. And although it can be really difficult to ask, I think you might be surprised at the result you get. Now, something else you can do as well as sort of asking people to share, say, your business page posts. You know, not everybody sees your business page posts, and particularly at the start, if you've only got a few followers, you know, it might only go out to 2 or 3 people. And this is why often people will say, well, I'm doing posts, but they don't seem to be getting seen by anybody. Facebook, as a rule of thumb, shows about 10% of your followers your post when it first comes out. And then if it takes off, it'll begin to share it some more. So it is really difficult, especially if you've only got a handful of followers, because you think, well, it might only show it to one person. And, you know, that one person, it might, as you publish it, they might not be online, so they might not respond to it, and then they never see it. It's actually really helpful, especially at the start, to see if you can get people to help you. And what you can do is, and again, this is a reason why it's quite helpful to not separate out and have a completely separate Facebook account, is you could share your business post to your personal page. And you could say to people, here's my latest business post. I'd love it if you could share it. You could either DM them and say, I've just shared this, could you share it? Or you could just, you know, share it with a little bit at the top. If this speaks to you, please share far and wide. I'd really appreciate it. But if you share that via your personal page, you may well then get people who see that who wouldn't have seen it if you'd published it. Sorry, you've already published it as your business page, but if you'd only shared it on your business page account. So share your business page account on your personal account, and that might help more people to engage with the post. Now, what might happen is you might get people then who like your posts. Cringe factor warning. It's then really helpful if you ask them to follow you. And if you're on Facebook and you've got access to your Meta business account, which is what you'll get if you've set your business page up as a business page. You're not just doing it as another personal account. What you'll get is you'll get Facebook telling you that this week so many people have engaged with your posts and to invite them to follow you. And I do this religiously. I will look for that post, and every single person who's liked one of my posts, I will then invite me to follow the page. I've got a huge number of people who I've invited who don't seem to have accepted the invitation, but at least I've actually invited them. I think often they don't see the invite, but just keep inviting people, and you will gradually build up a following that way. Now, the cringe factor is, again, sort of asking people, and you might think, oh, I can't ask someone to like and follow my page. That's really sort of pushy. But what I'd like you to think is that actually, if they've liked one of your posts, that means it's really spoken to them. And by inviting them to follow you, you're actually offering to provide them with more help. So it's actually not really something about you in terms of, I want to build myself up and get lots of likes and follows. It's actually about, I want to help people. And if I invite them to follow my page, they'll get more stuff that they're going to like, and it's going to make their social media feed more what they need it to be. And you're not sort of pushing it because they've got the choice whether or not they follow you. You're just inviting them. See it It's just an invite, and it's a lovely, warm way of welcoming someone into your world and offering to help them. What's not to like about that? Now, when you join a particular social media platform, you may not think of it like this, but you're actually joining a really big community. And there's lots of other people there who are creators and are building accounts and posting great posts. And one of the things that you can do is to connect with other people who are on that community of the social media platform that you're on. And so this next section is all going to be about what we call using other people's audiences. So what you're going to do is you're going to think about how you can connect with other people and other audiences in order to help your stuff get seen more. And again, just a little reminder that this is not just about, getting likes and follows. It's actually about giving. It's actually about helping people. And I think it's really helpful to reframe what you're doing on social media as you're serving. You're not there to get, you're there to give. And even if you're using other people's audiences, it's still about giving. And I'm going to give you now some ideas about how you can go about that. So, for example, one of the ways in which you can use the communities that are part of your social media platform, if you're on Facebook, there's often local groups and they share everything about what's going on in the community. And if you listened to Fee Hewkins' podcast, which, by the way, I'm going to reissue shortly, Fee talks about how in her town, the Facebook community page is where you go to find out about anything that's happening in the community. And I do find when I speak to therapists that a lot of them have success when they share posts to their local community groups. And in fact, one of the members of Therapy Growth Group, she said she shared a post about 6 weeks ago, and then she shared another post 6 weeks later and immediately got 2 people who got in touch and said, oh yes, I remember you from the last time you posted. So people do take notice, and especially if you're giving them something that makes them think, that contributes to their welfare, that helps them to feel seen, they're going to remember you. So you can give to people via those community pages. And if you offer someone who's running a community group a post that really engages people, remember you're actually helping the creator of that community group as well. Because posts that bring people to their group and get people engaging in their group means that their group's going to be seen more as well. So if you're contributing really good posts to a community group, you're actually helping the community group owner as well. So it's not about taking, it's actually about giving. And I know as an admin of a community group, which is Good Enough Counsellors, I really appreciate the people who do engage with posts, who do put interesting and engaging posts. It's really great because it helps my group to feel like a community, and it helps people to feel part of it and to keep coming back. So, when people share things in my group, I'm always really grateful. And if their stuff takes off, fantastic, because it really helps people to feel part of the Good Enough Counsellors community. So you're not taking, you're giving. Even though it might result in people getting in touch with you, which is great, it's all about the giving. The other sort of thing that you could think about as well if you're on Facebook is to think about groups that are a specific part of your niche. So for example, say you are working with menopausal women, go and find groups, active groups where there are people talking about the menopause. And what you do is you go in there, you don't go in there to sell yourself, you go in there again to give. You go in there to make comments, to share, to support people when they're asking questions. And people will get to know you. If you contribute regularly in 2 to 3 or 3 or 4 groups, you will find that people will get to know you. And you can make it sort of like, well, I'll go and check out the groups. I'll spend 15 minutes a day where I'll go and check the groups out. And if there's something where I can contribute, I'll say something. And what you want to make sure you do is you can either join these groups as your page, or you can join the group again as your personal profile, but make sure that your business page is connected to your personal profile. So on your about section, make sure that the business page is there, and then people can see that you are actually a therapist with business page. And you might even want to say on your bio something like BACP, accredited therapist, so that people can see who you are. Because people quite often, if you're a good contributor and you've got a lot of sensible things to say, they will click through to your profile to see who you are. And that can be another way of attracting clients. And the other great advantage of being a part of communities like that is quite often they will give you ideas for posts. So a question will come up and you'll maybe see something that's always getting asked, and you can think, oh, I can address that, and you can use that as an idea for one of your posts on your personal business page. So it's another great way of just getting ideas. Now we're going to move away from talking about Facebook community groups, because I know some of you will have other sites that are your main platforms, such as Instagram. So let's think about other ways that you can use community. When you first start your business page and set it up, you're like the new kid on the block. You don't really know anyone, and it's a bit lonely. So think about how you could make friends with other people and interact with them, and think about how you can create a community. Because if you're in a community and people get to like you and trust you, they'll also share your content. So let's think of ways that you can reach out to others. So what I suggest you do is think about your niche and find people who are active creators in your niche. They don't have to be other therapists. Just think, you say, again, using the example of menopause, who are those sort of influencers in the field of menopause, for example? And, find out who they are and follow their content and see if you like them. And then if you like them, start engaging with their account. You could share stuff if you think it's really useful to your followers. So, you might share their stuff in, say, your stories, or you might ask them if they'd give you permission to share one of their graphics in your post, for example. You could DM and introduce yourself. Now, if you really do like their content, you'll probably find that when you're reading it or looking at it, that you've got something to say. And what I'd like to remind you here is that commenting on other people's posts is still creating content. So just like I was saying, you can go into Facebook groups and comment there. You can do the same on other people's posts in places like Instagram or TikTok. What you want to be doing is, you don't need to read what other people are saying. If something genuinely gets you to think, don't read anybody else's comments. Put your own comment in. Really engage with that post and be somebody who provides useful and interesting replies. You can then use those replies to create your own content. So you could go away and you could post on that reply, your own take on it. But also, as you begin to comment on a creator's post, they'll begin to notice you. And then what you can do is you could DM them and introduce yourself and say a little bit about what you do. And before you know it, you've made a friend. You're not the new kid on the block any longer. So that's one way that you could really begin to make friends and create your own community around you. Another thing you could do is you could tag other businesses as well. You could share their stuff in your stories. But if you've had a good service, or you've read a book, or you've seen a fellow therapist's work, is share about it. And especially if you do something like you share a story with a comment or something like that, they'll probably reshare it on their stories as well. And then people will hear about you. So it's a good way of sort of helping each other, really. And it just mainly, it shines a light. It shows that you're a contributor, you're there, you're in the room. And it builds warmth, it builds relationship, it builds trust. And who knows, that might result in referrals. It often, when you're sharing about others, it often gets reciprocated. And if you do get somebody who's quite an active creator in your niche, who's sharing your stuff, that actually gives you authority, it gives you credibility, and it builds up trust. If someone is sharing your stuff and they're well known, that is a big boost to you, and you may well garner a whole lot more followers if that happens. I mentioned earlier about broadcasting. If you think about sitting down in front of a traditional TV show, you don't get any interaction at all, do you? It's just broadcast. And we often use social media to have that interaction with a particular programme, don't we? We'll chat away about programmes on social media, because then it becomes a two-way street, and that makes us feel more part of what's going on. But on social media, as a creator, you really want to get away from this idea that you're just posting and disappearing. You want to be engaged on social media. Certainly, people will say, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they'll say you're going to post on LinkedIn, do a LinkedIn post and then spend 5 or 10 or 15 minutes just interacting with other people on that platform, because it's all about community, and that helps to feed the algorithms. If they can see that you're someone who's consistently engaged on the platform, they'll promote you more. So don't just broadcast, actually engage as well. And that helps to build community. And so here's a few ways that you can engage with your own community. So this is when people might follow you or comment on your posts. When you've got a new follower, especially if you get only a few followers a week, DM them and say, thank you so much for following me. And you could ask them a little bit about themselves and just sort of set up a conversation with them. I'm so pleased that you followed me. Was there something particular that spoke to you about something that I said? Just how can I help? When they comment, answer them. Yeah, I find it difficult myself now, because I do get a huge amount of comments, but I always read them all, and if I don't get a chance to reply to them, I like them to show people that I have actually read them. But it's just really nice to get to know people, and when I've got time, I really do enjoy chatting to people. I love seeing people's pictures of cats and dogs. It just makes my day, really. It's so lovely to chat to people about what they like. So engage with your followers. And I always remember a coach that I then followed and paid quite a lot of money to over a number of years, put a post out, and I commented, and the fact that they took the time to reply to me really spoke to me, and actually it was what persuaded me to actually begin investing in them. So the power of using your time to reply to people can't be underestimated, in my opinion. Every time that you engage, you're actually building relationships. And actually, that also stimulates the algorithm, because if there's a conversation going on, it means that, this is an engaging piece of content, and the algorithm will send it out to more people. So you're not only building a community, you're helping to build a bigger social media community by it going further out. Now, there's a quick pause to tell you about something that makes all the difference when you're trying to grow a therapy practice. And of course, it's community. In Therapy Growth Group, you're not figuring things out on your own. Whether it's how to deal with negative comments on social media, that comes up quite a bit. What to say when you want to show up more visibly. Working with that fear of visibility and having a wobble about whether you're doing it right. Whatever those fears are, we've got you. There's always someone in the group who's been through it, or faced the same doubt, or found a way forward. And we often have time to share with each other so that we can build each other up and encourage each other. If imposter syndrome is telling you that you don't know enough, or that people will judge you, especially when it comes to posting online, then next month in September, we're going to be tackling this whole subject together. You really don't have to do this social media stuff and this private practice alone. If you'd like to feel less alone and more encouraged in your work, then come and join us, and the link to Therapy Growth Group is in the show notes. One of the things that we can find really difficult is actually thinking of original ideas to put on our social media page. I'm going to correct myself there and say no idea is original. Probably someone's already had it, but we can put our unique take on it. However, what can be really helpful for you when you're struggling to know what to post about are social media awareness days. And believe me, there's something relevant every single day of the year. It saves you having to reinvent the wheel. And September is actually full of opportunities to post, whether it's serious, reflective, fun, or promotional. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share a few ideas today and how you can use them. But if you want the full September list and the full September ideas, then you need to come into Therapy Growth Group, because that's where I put all the prompts. So what I'm going to do now is I've got a few themes and I'm going to give you an idea of a day for each of those particular themes. So the first one that I'm going to give you, the first theme, is all about emotional awareness, and it's a sort of therapy theme. And I think it's a really important one for us to remember and not to miss. And that is World Suicide Prevention Day, which is on the 10th of September. And I've spoken in other episodes about covering this very difficult topic. It's difficult, but I don't think we can shy away from it. And the way you talk about it, obviously you want to approach it sensitively, don't you? Because you may have people in your audience who have actually been personally affected by it. But that's a really good reason as to why you want to talk about suicide prevention. You might want to talk about the figures. You might want to talk about the fact that this is something that inspires you to be a therapist. You might want to talk about how you would handle it if someone was feeling suicidal. There's different ways that you could come in to talk about World Suicide Prevention Day. You might want to make it easier for people to be able to tell you that they're feeling suicidal. So you might want to say something accepting about that. I mean, obviously you're not expecting people to tell you on social media, but you know how you'd approach it in your therapy room and how you make your therapy room a safe space for people to talk about how they're really feeling at a deep level. And of course, you know, if you want to be protective, you might want to share some of the hotlines perhaps that people could turn to. If you're somebody who is interested in sharing about inclusivity, we've actually got National Inclusion Week. I think it's National Inclusion Week at work, and that's coming up on the 15th of September. So this would be a great time to talk about what inclusion looks like in your practice, for example, or how you create space for people who perhaps don't feel included. And if you've got a particular client group that you work with, this might be a perfect opportunity to point out that you work with this particular client group. And at this point, I'd love to give a little teaser for what's coming up in Series 3 of the podcast, which will be happening from September. I've got Nicola Blunden, who's coming in to talk about something called epistemic injustice, which is people who don't get included. And I've also got the lovely Yvonne Guest coming on to talk about people of multiracial identity and mixed race, and how they're often excluded because people don't understand their particular needs. So that's coming up later in Series 3. So please do carry on listening. Let's move on to thinking about creative and light-hearted and fun posts. And I'm going to give you a couple here. You've got something like Buy a Book Day on the 7th, which you could then ask people about books that they like reading. And also you've got Live Creative Day, and it's also Colouring Day on the 14th, which is where you could post creative exercises, share about what you do in therapy, or talk about how you use creativity in your therapy room. And we've also got World Gratitude Day coming up on the 21st of September. And this would be a great opportunity to create a sense of community, because you could share something that you're grateful for and ask people to share what they're grateful for as well. And of course, you can reply to all their gratitude comments, and that will help you to engage with people. And finally, I want to give you a little reminder about using social media awareness days. It looks terribly forced if sort of every day you were to say, today is World Gratitude Day, or today is Colouring Day. It sounds a bit forced, doesn't it? So you don't even need to post on the actual day. You can just use it as a prompt. And this is what I do, is you often probably won't realise that I've looked at what the day is. And then I've just let my brain go off on a little journey to think about how that might be relevant. And you can just use them as a prompt. So as I say, you don't need to actually post it on the day, and you don't need to say it's World Gratitude Day, for example. You can keep it personal, so you can share a little story or an insight, and that's often what I'll be doing. And as I say, you won't even realise that I've used these social media awareness days to actually prompt that thought. It's just that you can use it to give you ideas. But you can also tie these days to your niche and your client groups. Now, for example, it's Fight Procrastination Day on the 6th of September. And this would be really great if you work with people who perhaps are neurodivergent, or you're working with people who've got a strong inner critic. So if you're working in the area of self-esteem, the inner child type thing, that could be a day where you think, okay, what does procrastination mean to my particular client group? What can they do about it? How can I help them? Is it something that I've experienced? How have I overcome it? So, thinking about how you can use that day in a personal way and in a way that applies to the people you're trying to reach can make it that they just read your posts and think, blimey, this person is talking just to me. It's like they're inside my head. And when you've got that sort of reaction, people are going to follow you, and they're going to follow you for more, because you're really speaking into their lives, and they want to know. They want to know more. They need your help. So use stories and make it personal, and bring it into your niche, and that will help people to follow you. Because as I've been saying all the way through this podcast episode, what you're doing is you're creating a safe space. You're creating connection. And people will find that really compelling when they're looking for a therapist. I hope this episode has really helped you to think about the power of community. Connection means so much to me. It's really quite central to what I do in my work. I hope that my podcasting helps you to feel connected to me. I hope that you enjoy being part of my community too. And just a little reminder that you can work with me more closely if you become part of my therapy growth group, because I run coaching calls each week, and you can attend those and be live with me and ask questions. And also, if you are on social media, I've got ready-made prompts and dates for you to use to make your social media posting much easier. Thanks for listening. This is the end of Series 2. I'm coming back in September with Series 3. But in the meantime, over the month of August, what I'll be doing is sharing some of the great episodes that I've previously recorded, so that if you've missed them, if you've joined my world recently, you may not have heard them. So if you've missed them, you can hear them again. But even if you've heard them before, if you've been with me since the start, they'll probably still give you new ideas. So I hope you enjoy them. I hope you have a great rest of August. I'm going to be taking a break towards the end of the month, but I will be back at the beginning of September with these wonderful, wonderful episodes that I've recorded, and other practitioners who are coming into the studio in the next week. So I've got some great interviews coming up, and I really look forward to sharing them with you. Thanks so much for being one of my listeners. I really do appreciate it. It means such a lot to me. And if you'd like to leave me a review on your podcast app, that would really help me. Thanks so much for listening, and have a great summer. Thanks for listening. Do come and join my Facebook community, Good Enough Counsellors. And for more information about how I can help you develop your private practice, please visit my website, josephinehughes.com. If you found this episode helpful, I'd love it if you could share it with a fellow therapist or leave a review on your podcast app. And in closing, I'd love to remind you that every single step you make gets you closer to your dream. I really believe you can do it.